Vancouver, a city of beauty. It thrives in busyness, and it's a city that just has so much life. It's characterized by its beautiful skyline, the beautiful buildings that make up that big city feel. It is your organization that helps contribute to Vancouver's great city feel, that big city feel. Good morning, my name is Jeff. I'm here with Davis and Risa, and you've called us in as part of Grid Consulting to look at your organization and to see how we can look at different technological aspects, different systems, different procedures that can help support your organization's growth. As we noticed, there's a lot of growth in your organization. We're just going to take a quick look at how your organization is doing, how the market is doing, and just really characterizing what's the environment like right now. So first, we're going to look at your company. So your company is relatively new, started in 2011, so it's about 5 years old, and your first project was successfully sold in 2014. So that was a smaller sized building that was sold, and it was a great success. And so your organization decided to move on to the next, another project that's a little bit larger, or actually quite a bit larger. It went from a 20 unit building to a 300 high-end apartment unit building. And so that's a sizable jump, and now we're looking at different technological aspects, different technologies that can help support that growth, and with that, looking at how all of this can come into one integrated system. So the organization, how are things running behind the scenes in your organization? So the first is that real estate is a very time-sensitive industry. There's a lot of paperwork going in and out, and a lot of things need to be done in a time-efficient manner. And so that's huge in this industry. Second is that there's up to 100 emails a day that are being sent through from person to person with often multiple documents that are attached. And so this is quite a heavy load for the back end of your organization in order of track information and such. And the third thing is a long approval process. And so in order to get approval for zoning, things like that, there's a long process, and that's very tedious. And so we're looking at how can we help your organization find systems that support that so that the hang-ups aren't on your end, but rather you minimize the time in order to get things approved and get things rolling. Because at the end of the day, that's how you get your bottom line. A couple more things with organization. There's communication done through email and text, and so that's how things are being done right now. There's not one centralized area where communication is being processed, and it's not in one central place. So if you're trying to find information that was delivered, then it may be difficult. You have to go across different platforms. The second is that rejected project management software. So you tried already to implement a project management software, but unfortunately, it was rejected by most of the employees. And so we're going to dive into why was that the case, and how can we take those lessons learned carrying forward. And the final thing here is that email chains are often attached with all team members. So it can be quite tedious. There's quite a lot of people that are attached to it, and you don't know who it's being sent to, who saw it. And so that might be something that comes into play in terms of choosing something that can help your organization thrive. The customer. So in this case, the customer is the end users in your organization, the people using the technology. And so we want to kind of characterize what's their job like so that we can understand what's the best technology for them, right? So the first is that there's a high-stress job. The construction industry and real estate industry there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of things going on. You got to manage a lot of things all at once. And so you want to find something that really helps support that. The second is that it's communication-heavy work. There's a lot of communication between external parties within your organization, and so that's really important, is that it's able to support that communication, not just document handling. And the third one is that it's a detail-oriented role. So it's really important that people are able to look at the different documents, know which are new, see what has been changed, and in order to complete their job. We want to make the job for the people within your organization, whatever it may be in terms of project management, HR, all those things, to make their job as easy as possible. The last thing that we're going to talk about here is what's the project like. Right now you have one big project. It's 300 units of a high-end apartment complex. So the first thing is that you're looking at changing the target market. Well, you're not looking at changing the target market. The target market has changed on you. The people coming in and showing interest has changed, and so you're going to have to put in some changes in regards to the design of the building. And so there's a long approval process with that. And so with that, there may be a 3-month delay. And if there is that 3-month delay, that could result in half of the profit lost. And so we want to make sure that we implement systems for your organization that really helps speed up that and limit the amount of time used for that approval process. So next, we're going to talk about the key challenges here. So we have our main challenge of your organization, which is managing company growth. That's kind of the overarching problem, but there's 3 sub-problems that we kind of want to, I guess, address with the different technologies that we will suggest today. The first is inevitable plan changes. So we've talked about it already. There's that plan change that's coming in with the new target market, and so that's inevitable. You can't change that. But we want to help you minimize how much time it would take on your end in order to keep those profits up as high as possible. The second is that there's a lack of unified policies and procedures. And so that led to rejection of that project management software in the past. And so we want to look at how we can address that so that carrying forward when there are new procedures or when there are new programs, people are actually willing to accept it and embrace it. And the third is that there's an internal information exchange volume increase. And so there's going to be a lot more communication with these changes that are going to be happening internally, but also externally. So how can your organization manage the emails, the texts, or whatever it may be in regards to the information for this building? So this is our problem statement. We've summed it up all into one statement so that you guys can look at this and really understand where we're coming from with our recommendation. So it's how can Quest Designs manage the new stage in the company's growth while keeping up with the fast pace of the industry? And so we know that the industry is very fast paced, so we want to look for recommendations that really support that.
So getting into the criteria of how we're going to choose our solution here, one thing I do want to address is how we actually found this criteria right here. Now we do understand that cost is always an issue for any company. However, with any collaboration software, we realize that this will cost us under $1,000 for something that your employees will be using up to 100 times on a daily basis. So this cost isn't much of a factor, so we actually factor that into every one of our alternatives that we're recommending to you. Another thing that we want to address as well is that the criteria, it has to have a chat function. So essentially this means that this will speed up your business processes. Your employees will be able to communicate with each other very easily on a day-to-day basis, but they'll also be able to communicate externally. So this will reach out to people outside the company and also speed up the fact that you'll be receiving contracts and sending them out in a very time-efficient manner. The next criteria that we want to establish here was that we want to make sure that it has file storage. So there's a lot of attachments being sent with these emails back and forth. There's also a lot of text messages and pictures being sent. We want to ensure that this file is being stored, aggregated, and sent to a data storage facility to ensure that this data is being maintained throughout the duration of the project. And lastly, we want to ensure that this is very usable. Any product, such as the Easy project that you used earlier, wasn't necessarily user acceptable within the company. A lot of your employees decided that even though this was a great IT solution, they did not want to use this one specific product. So essentially what happens is you can spend as much money as you want. However, if your employees do not buy into it and it's not having a very high usability rate, your employees will not be using that software for the intended use originally. So essentially, we addressed 3 main alternatives right here. The first one being Rike, the second one being Igloo, and the third one being Atlassian HipChat. All of these are your IT solutions to essentially increasing your collaboration both internally and externally with your company. So onto the first alternative here, we do have Rike, and the best part about Rike is it has a very quick rollout. Now we understand that you are on certain time pressures. You want to get this apartment complex up as soon as possible so you can reach your profit lines and essentially not reach that 3-month mark where you're losing half of your profits. However, there is a downside to Rike, and it has no communication capabilities. As I mentioned earlier, that chat function is imperative for your company to have to speed up your business processes, so we want to ensure that we are choosing a solution with that chat function. The second alternative actually does have that chat function, It also has centralized data storage, so it can save your data, so you're always saving those attachments in a chronological order, so you always have the most updated attachment, and you're not having to dig through which file was the final copy. There is a downside to this, however, and it's not very aesthetic. It's not very usable, and this can bring us back to previous problems that you've had within your company, where you tried to roll out an IT solution that wasn't necessarily the most aesthetic and most user-friendly, so the users did reject the final product. The last alternative I want to bring up here is the Atlassian HipChat, and this also records messages too. It can record the messages in that chronological chat order. It can also have a ton of attachments sent to it, which is very user-friendly both internally and externally because it works on a multitude of platforms. If you look at the platforms it works on iOS, Android, Mac, or Windows. It'll work for anyone, no matter what company you're sending information out to, so they can use this Atlassian HipChat recommendation here. Now, why we wouldn't want to use this is because the online status is not necessarily reliable. It might say that a user is offline when they are online. So we do have ways to mitigate this one, reason why you wouldn't want to use Atlassian HipChat. So essentially it brings us here to the comparison of why you'd want to use these different alternatives that we do have here. We did address that Write does not have the chat function, so that does not make it very user-friendly when you're trying to communicate externally. But also, it doesn't necessarily have the usability in terms of aesthetics for the product. One thing that we did want to point out here is that Atlassian does not have that file storage, so you're going to have to find another way to save your files so you're maintaining those files on your database. And the last thing I want to point out is that the Igloo solution isn't necessarily user-friendly in the sense that it's not the most aesthetic product in the final sense when the user is actually using that product.
So I'm really excited to propose our recommendation, which is called Elaboration Plus, which is a combination of the knowledge management platform integrated with the HipChat communication software. So basically, this will be a new information management system, and I would like to propose our implementation plan for you. So our implementation plan consists of 3 phases. Phase 1 is prepare for this knowledge management change, and phase 2 is building the knowledge management block, and phase 3 is roll out the collaboration plus. So deep dive into each phases. In phase 1, this will take about 2 weeks time because you have a really intensive timeline. We're preparing for the change. First, very importantly, that's why we're here to propose our solution to is get the executive support. That's the key for us to have our change management being elaborated to all levels. Secondly, we'll get the employee and user support. So we'll educate the employees what are the potential benefit and usefulness for them to use this new knowledge management system, so that they can understand why they need this system and what's the benefit they're getting to use this system. Third, we'll create the knowledge management team. We're deciding to contracting 2 IT knowledge management specialists. When we're contracting, do things fast and quick. They're getting everything sorted out for us without you to worry about your technical capability. Fourth, we'll conduct the knowledge management audit. So basically, it means we will have to identify what is missing in the current information system. What are the information that you're missing? The tacit knowledge basically is you need to capture the knowledges and files from the people who have the previous project experience, so that all this experience and file can be saved. These are the valuable tacit message, which is the key for the knowledge management change. And lastly, for the phase 1 is we'll confirm the project proposal as well as a work plan with the executive team and all the stakeholders being involved. So in phase 2, we'll talk about building the knowledge management blocks. So there's few blocks which are integrated in the phase 2. First is we'll create a centralized database to store all the information. We can link the knowledge management platform with our database as well as a communication tool. Secondly is set up the HipChat communication software and link with the database. And third is create different modules for different teams. You have sales team, you also have the land development team as well as site plan approval team. There's different teams, so we create different modules, different chat room. All the information are stored at different levels. You have to get the data administrators granting you the access to access all the information. for this, we'll then conduct the data cleanup for the previous project informations and files for the last 17 months, as well as conduct data migration, migrate the previous Excel and Word document, as well as all the valuable information from the previous project to the new platform. After conducting this, we will keep the data integrity, and will be one of the data administrator who is currently existing in the company. He will be trained to granting access to different levels, and will also set up policies and rules for data storage collection. So in phase 3, after we getting all the blocks prepared, we'll roll out for the collaboration plus. So we'll set out the process and procedures for all the documents, seeing where you should store the messages, who is giving access to different level of team folders. And secondly, we'll conduct the user acceptance test as well as the business value assessment. So we'll ask the users and potential stakeholders, are they happy with the functions? Are they happy with the new knowledge management platform? If they're not happy, we gather their requirement and making changes accordingly. Third is critical important, train the users how to use the new knowledge management system so that they know all the functions and they know how to properly save the information, making the update to the files. And we're making changes and implement, as I mentioned, based on the previous stakeholder engagement session, as well as the business value assessment survey. Lastly, we'll evaluate the users based on their user experience. We have a better understanding about the pros and cons of our current implementation. So this is the entire technical implementation, and Davis will touch base for the change management side.
So whenever connecting people, you want to ensure that you're essentially going to be prosperous moving forward. Now when we are connecting people, we want to ensure that we're actually ensuring the right policies are going to be put into place. And this is something that you can do Monday morning. You only have 24 staff members, so I actually recommend that you have a staff meeting to ensure that you're rolling out the policy so that they understand how to use this new collaboration software. The first thing that we want to do is ensure that there's proper naming conventions for the individual files that will be shared. So that way, when we're looking it up again to try and put it into a centralized database, the individual who's looking it up can simply hit Control F, find that one individual file because of the conventional name. The second thing that we want to essentially do is confirm the changes going on within the business itself. We want to ensure that everyone is up to date with the IT processes going through. So you want to confirm that with everybody inside the business. And the last thing that we're going to do is essentially hold these meetings on a timely basis to ensure that everyone is up to date with the new developments with this solution.
So I'll talk about the risk and mitigation plan we have. As I mentioned for the 3 phases, phase 1 takes about 2 weeks time, and phase 2 takes 1 month to building the knowledge management block, and phase 3 takes about 2 months time to go on, 2 weeks time to go online. The entire implementation will take 2 months time in total, which is within your budgeted time. So, but there's potential risk of external user acceptance. If the external users could not accept, like the city engineers, what we will do is we'll simplify our product so that even the external user will be able to pick up how to use this quick and fast. Second potential risk is internal user acceptance. So we'll keep tracking of the usage for different users internally, as well as we have an incentive plan. So people who are using the knowledge management platform more often and efficiently will give them recommendation and rewards. Thirdly, the third risk is the implementation might take longer than we expected. So we'll keep track of the deliverables and have a quality assurance plan. So making sure all the changes are communicated at all levels. And if there's certain types of challenges in between, we have a little bit buffer because we only have 2 months implementation for the entire knowledge management platform.
So it comes back to the problem identification. How can Quest Designs manage the new stage of the company's growth while keeping up with the fast pace of the industry? We have the utmost confidence in our recommendation that it would be able to support your company through this large change. And we have the utmost confidence that through this recommendation with the knowledge management software and the collaboration through the chat, that you'd be able to support the documents being transferred and help your organization help Vancouver continue to be a great city. We'd like to open up the floor to questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. This concludes the presentation, and the question period will start now.
Thank you very much for your presentation. If I was following properly, the Tivoli build, the next phases of the Tivoli build, the recurring phase 2 of your implementation plan, how would you manage implementing those things in phase 2 while the construction project is starting up?
So basically, they currently have one data administrators in the company existing, and we will deciding to hire 2 extra contractors, which are the IT professionals coming in to help with the implementation. And we have the one data administrator existing in the company, as well as 2 external contractors to make a IT implementation project team. But all the other current existing construction works will be doing as a we. They having the Excel using the current existing software, Easy Project, and whenever this gets ready within 2 months' time, we move everything over by the data administrator, as well as there's data migration and data cleanup will be completed by the 2 external contractors.
Thank you.
My question follows a little bit in the sense of, I think you identified the problem very well, and the plan makes sense clearly, but I'm curious about the feasibility of implementing it so quickly. If we look in the first 2 weeks, we're getting support, we're finding an IT specialist, we're creating a plan, we're doing the audit, and it could take 2 weeks just to find a contractor. I think the 1 month duration for the rest kind of depends on how complex this gets. How database design isn't super easy depending on who you find to do that, and will you host it in-house or have it hosted somewhere else. So there's some decisions there. But most of the rollout and collaboration piece, in 2 weeks, you're going to go from setup to training to making the changes and evaluating the effectiveness of the changes. And I think the risk there might be that you try and move it too fast, and you might be limiting your chances of success, and you end up with the same problem when you start with the first system that you end up having. So what are your thoughts on that, and how you'll mitigate those risks and doing it in such a tight time frame?
Absolutely. So one thing that we did address was that through all 3 of our alternatives, they can be rolled out very, very quickly into the company in regards to communication. The other thing that we want to address too is that moving forward, we can actually hire certain IT specialists, as mentioned in the implementation. The reason for this certain growth is because you're expanding from 20 unit apartment complexes to 300 unit apartment complexes. You've also already spent $135,000 on research and development, so you might as well invest money similar to that amount into staff to essentially grow our IT processes and move forward as a company. So that's actually going to speed up the project plan itself, is because we're going to have specialists working on that during that specific time frame, and that's their individual role within the company. We're not moving over project managers, we're getting new people to essentially roll that out within our company.
How, I recognize the use of chat and also knowledge management. How do you foresee us using, or how do you foresee us handling project management? I don't know if I caught that portion.
Definitely. So we identified some of the problems as problems that need to be addressed right away. So we saw that communication was a huge problem that needed to be addressed right away, and taking that will help lead into other softwares that will be implemented. But right now you do have your current software that's not adapted or kind of adopted yet, but it allows you to kind of transition into that. But without the communication piece of that kind of system, none of that will work. Right, and so we saw one of the main reasons why people kind of shied away from the email or from the project management software was because it lacked the communication. So people would put documents on there, but they wouldn't know that it would be on there, and so they end up just emailing each other and texting each other, right? And so having that communication piece in there might help together into one kind of unified system. Does that answer?
The scope of your plan is just the initial transition.
Yeah, so to kind of stop the bleeding, get you to a place where you can actually implement a good project management system. Currently, if you were to just throw a project management system in right now, it wouldn't really address anything because it still lacks all the functionality, right?
Thank you.
Was there any thought put into, in your analysis, the old system and trying to fix it.
Mhm.
Because it's changing the customer focus, the project's could be so much more complicated.
Well, once again, it's that communication piece that wasn't addressed through that software, and so that needed to be addressed before even considering which project management software to use.
When you opened your presentation, you did, and it's a segue to